everyone, welcome back to another episode of Learn Japanese from Some Guy. In today's video, we're going to look at chapter 9 in my textbook, where we're going to take an in-depth look at how verbs work in the Japanese language. So today, we're not going to learn any specific grammatical structure. Instead, we're going to learn from a technical standpoint how verbs function in Japanese. And I think even though today's video is really short, it's very, very important because from now, our videos are going to get really, really complicated, and understanding how verbs work will help make your learning much, much faster, much easier. So even though it's short, today's lesson I think is really, really important. So without further ado, 始まりましょうか。よろしくお願いします。All right, everyone, here we are, chapter 9. And like I mentioned before, we're just today going to look at a quick note on Japanese verbs. So we're not going to learn any specific grammar structure today. We're just going to look at some basic information about verbs, but extremely important information. So before we move on and start to look at more difficult grammar structures, it's very important that we understand this basic concept about Japanese verbs. So let's get started. The thing that we're going to talk about today is how Japanese verbs work. So in English, as you already know, there are three temporal relationships. There's past, present, and future. But in Japanese, there are only two. Those would be past and non-past. So to put it another way, there's just something is in the past or it's not. And it may seem a little confusing, but it's actually really, really good news for us, students of Japanese, because that means there's a whole time frame that we don't have to worry about when we're conjugating verbs. So if you've taken Spanish classes or French classes, then you know already that when you have these languages that have future tense, past tense, present tense, all these subjunctives and things like that, it can get just out of control. But Japanese keeps it to just basically two tenses, and that's it. So very, very simple, and you'll really, really appreciate it as you further your studies. But now you might be asking, Jeremy, if that's the case, how do Japanese people know whether someone is talking about right now or the future? Something's in the past or it's not. How do you know if someone's talking about today or tomorrow or next year? And the answer to that is very simple, and it's just context. So understanding and being a good speaker of Japanese really requires you to think, and really requires you to infer a lot of information. So when you speak, you need to imply, and when you listen, you need to infer these kinds of things. So a lot of it just depends on the context of a sentence or a situation. Okay, so it's easy to determine whether someone is talking about something that's happening right now or something that's going to happen in the future, because maybe when they're talking to you, they'll use a word like tomorrow. Then okay, well, tomorrow it's obviously in the future, not talking about right now, so they must be talking about the future because it's not the past. So there you go, very easy. So here's two conversations that will kind of help demonstrate or illustrate what I mean. So here we have Andy and Sally. So in conversation one, Andy says, 明日何をしますか? And Sally says, 日本語を勉強します。明日何をしますか? 日本語を勉強します。So what are you doing tomorrow? So again, we have tomorrow, 明日. So she says, I'm going to study Japanese. 日本語を勉強します。And here we have conversation two. Again, Sally and Andy. And Sally, the exact same sentence as before. She says, 日本語を勉強します。日本語を勉強します。I study Japanese. And Andy this time says, 私も. Me too. So please notice Sally in conversation one and conversation two says the exact same thing. 日本語を勉強します。日本語を勉強します。But the meaning is different. So the first conversation, we can translate it as to, I'm going to study Japanese. And in the second one, I study Japanese. So we can see from the context. So Andy, in the first conversation, is asking about her plans. So, I'm going to study Japanese. So that's how we know it's the future. I'm going to study. And in the second one, maybe Sally is just simply stating a fact, something general about herself. I study Japanese, or I like cookies, or I drink coffee. No, just the present tense, just stating a simple fact. So Andy says, me too. I study Japanese too. So this is a really good example of how we can see that just based on the context of a situation, we can infer different meanings, even with the exact same word, exact same sentence. And people might think like, well, that's really strange or that's really weird, but the reality is English has this kind of grammar structure as well. For example, I can tell my friend, hey, tomorrow my plane arrives at 6:30, so please pick me up at the airport. So even though I'm talking about tomorrow, I use the present tense of the verb arrive. I don't say tomorrow at 6:30 my plane will arrive. I guess I could, but I can also just say, tomorrow my plane arrives at 6:30, so please pick me up. So this is a part of English that maybe you never really even thought about, but the reality is we can often use present tense verbs when we want to talk about the future. So it's really not that foreign or that strange to native English speakers. But anyway, that's it for this chapter. Like I said, just short and sweet, and just a summary of what we learned. Japanese only has two tenses, the past and non-past, and context is what provides the information we need to determine whether someone is talking about the past, right now, or the future. Okay, so just be sure to remember that. Watch this video again. Really try to understand, okay, two tenses, and context is what determines if it's the past or if it's the non-past. Because it's going to really play an important role in our next chapter, where we're going to look at how to conjugate verbs to the mas stem. So now we're really going to get into conjugating verbs and making more complex sentences. So understanding the information in chapter 9 is going to be extremely important. Also, we looked at chapter 8 at iru and aru to describe location, and we learned that the mas form of iru is imasu, and the mas form of aru is arimasu. So if you were kind of confused or curious about how we did that in chapter 8, chapter 10 is where we're going to learn all about that. So we'll talk about that, and be sure to check out that video.
All right, guys, that's going to do it for today's chapter. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit that like button, and be sure to subscribe if you wish to get updated on when future videos are released. Also, if you wish to support this series, or you're just so motivated you can't wait for that next video to come out, my book is available for purchase on Amazon, the link for which will be in the description box below. As always, your comments and reviews are greatly appreciated, so be sure to let me know what you think. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next time. Mata ne!